When I see a scene like Michael getting burnt and everyone was like running helter skelter, making sure he hasn't lost his life or he hasn't had like an injury that might even like I don't know, be
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
permanent,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
exactly.
And then the first thing that the dad says is, "Will he be able to do the tour?" I'm like, uh, who does that? He described Michael Jackson's private parts,
Hmm.
and you would think to yourself that if there was a case and this guy was correct in how he described Michael Jackson's private part, you would think that more than likely, suggests he's guilty,
93
and that would.
allegation against Michael Jackson. I know that they filmed the first raid on Neverland, and apparently they filmed the strip search, and that was all included in the film. But apparently, when the Michael Jackson settled the civil suit in January 1994, there was a clause inserted that prevented Jackson or any of his representatives from dramatizing the events that led to the settlement.
Hello, besties, and welcome to a fantastic episode today. This is going to be like so exciting. You must have heard about the new Michael Jackson movie. We are here to talk about that today with my very good friend, Tavian. This man, I promise you, is an encyclopedia when it comes to Michael Jackson stuff. I thought I was good, but he's super good. So this promises to be good. Now, we are going to cover the movie, what people are saying about it. We are going to cover what we feel about it as well. And we're also going to cover the critics and the part where they are very, very unhappy with the fact that the Michael Jackson, later trials were not like a part of the movie. We're going to talk about all that. So anyway, let's jump into this. So hi, Tavian, how you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I just wanted to say I didn't realize I was your friend.
Only for the camera today.
Okay, that's
After
fine
today,
now.
we're back to normal, okay?
Okay, then I just wanted to clear that up.
Okay, no problem. Clarified. Yeah. So the movie, right? Who saw it first?
Mhm.
Did I see it first or did you see it first?
I saw it on the Friday, and I think you saw it on the Saturday.
Saturday. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
so to start with, let's start with you. What was your view on the movie? Generally.
Generally, I enjoyed the film. I It didn't have as much depth as I was expecting. I thought that a lot of the edits were very quick, and there wasn't a cohesive narrative, in my opinion, throughout the whole film. I understand that they were trying to tell the story of his rise from childhood to fame, the dynamics of the relationship between him and his father. But I just thought that they could have done a little bit more with the characters, with Joe, and tell a bit more about Michael's story. But I kind of understood why they did what they did and because they have to cram so much into 2 hours. I just thought I enjoyed it. The music was fantastic. The performance was fantastic. Um, but from a dramatic point of view, I just thought maybe they could have done a little bit more.
Yeah, I think we're like on the same page when it comes to that because
Mm.
what I felt was I like the music, I like the cinematography. I thought the dancing, the singing, and his voice, he sounded so much like Michael. It was spooky. I loved all that. But I just thought a lot of the scenes and the stories, I thought they could have had a bit more like depth and a bit more introduction to it. It
Hmm.
was just
Yeah.
almost as if they were like just like jumping into all the scenes, and I think that was because there was not enough time to cover all those scenes. But I thought to myself, that movie was 2 hours and 5 minutes. They could have made it 3 hours,
Seven.
7
But
minutes.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they could have made it 3 hours easily. Because I remember when he ended, I thought to myself, "Is
Is
that two
that it?
hours?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it felt so quick.
You're not the first person to think that. In fact, I thought exactly the same thing. That wow, that's gone so quickly. I mean, obviously, I understand that the original film was 3.5 hours long, and then they probably thought, it's too long. Are people going to sit in the movie theater for 3.5 hours? But I would have.
Yeah, I would have, and it
Yeah,
flew by.
yeah,
It wasn't as if you were
yeah,
thinking to yourself,
yeah.
"Oh, I got to go now." You know, you just thought, I thought, is that it? You know, so they could have made it 3 hours just to
Mm,
give those stories a bit more depth. I think so, and they've also got like parts 2 and maybe 3 to come. So I think
mhm.
they had time. They could have done that, but all the same, I thought it was fantastic. You're there, and time just flies by. Brought back so many great memories. Um,
The cast was sorry to interject, but the casting I think was fantastic. I
yeah,
thought that Coleman Domingo, I mean, even I was scared of Coleman
that's the
Domingo.
guy who played Joe Jackson, yeah, the father,
Yeah,
yeah.
yes, yes.
Just for people to know, yeah.
I thought young Michael Jackson. I think Giuliano was amazing. He did a fantastic job. Jafar knocked it completely out of the ballpark with the mannerisms, the voice. I'd already had forewarning about the voice because I know someone who was on set, and she'd already said, "You're not ready to hear Jafar's voice. He sounds like Michael." But until I actually heard it, and not even in the film, I think it was in the trailer, I wasn't prepared for how similar. I mean, it really was
The voice
uncanny.
was it was spooky, man. It was spooky.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
voice.
Even the giggle, even the little Michael giggle that he did, I thought was really uncanny. So I thought that was a good choice. I know that a lot of people had reservations about casting a family member, but I think that it was inspired. That they
Talking
took
about,
a risk. Hmm?
sorry, talking about the casting, right? What's that guy's name? Is it John Branca or what's that guy's name?
Oh yeah,
The
John Branca. Yeah,
he
the
looked so
lawyer.
much like him.
Well,
I thought
Miles Teller.
I don't know his name, but I thought the guy who
Yeah,
played
Miles
him looked
Teller.
a lot like him.
Yeah, he did.
He
He
looked like
did.
a younger version of him.
Kind of. Yeah, yeah.
And then the guy who played Bill Bray, oh my lord, that was like spooky as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, that was, and I'm glad that they really paid attention to Bill Bray in Michael's life because he really was a very, very important figure um, in Michael Jackson's life. So yeah, I mean that was the casting was fantastic. I have nothing negative to say about the casting. I think they did a really good job. I enjoyed the film, and like I said, the music sounded absolutely awesome. It
Billie
really
Jean
did.
and Beat It and Thriller, they were just like amazing. They captured the essence. It was fantastic to see. And I also love the fact that they told how Beat It came to be, how the video idea came and the idea for the song. That was good as well.
I just don't think that they spent enough time on it though, because the Motown 25th anniversary, they just threw it into the film. There,
No
there was
build
there,
up,
there was
all
no,
the
there
drama
was
that led
yeah,
to it. Yeah.
yeah, there was no build up. Even the Beat It thing again, they just threw it into the film. There was very little build. The Thriller section again was just thrown in. It was just like, whoa, what, and then you're off to something else, and then you're off to something else. I thought they really could spend a bit more time giving us some background. What was the story behind the Thriller video? What was the issue with Michael asking his record company for $500,000? I think it was at the time, and they were like, "Are you crazy?" And he was like, "Okay, I'll do
I'll
it
pay for
myself."
it. Mhm.
And they figured out a way to fund it by making a documentary about the making of the film and then selling the rights to that. And then how was the video to Billie Jean made? Again, the story behind the Motown 25th anniversary and all the drama that came with that. We just didn't get any build up, any explanation to a lot of things. But like you said, maybe it was because of time constraints. I just think it would have been better especially for people who knew very little about Michael Jackson's history, for them to kind of really give us a grounding in all these different segments of his life.
Yeah. For example, the Thriller album, I don't know if you know this, but when they were like recording that album and they finished it, they mixed it, took so long to mix.
Mhm.
Michael got home, he played it, and he burst into tears because he thought it was
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah,
They went
yeah.
back, yeah. Things like that, I think they should have been in the movie. Things like that, nothing about it. When Michael had the album Off the Wall, He won only 2 Grammys, and he was in tears. He was crying. He said, "I'm going to show them next time that my music is for all races and all people." And that's why he went back to make Thriller with that whole idea to cover, like so many, I don't know, genres or whatever, right? Things like that. Nothing appeared in the movie.
To be fair, I mean, the guy had a 43-year career, and even between 68 and 88, which was 20 years, there was so much
20
going
years,
on.
wow.
Yeah, they couldn't even fit that in. Listen, they could have taken like every 5 years and made a movie out of every 5 years of his career, honestly.
Every
So
year.
yeah, well, there you go. So I think, to be fair to the filmmakers, they were always going to leave tons of stuff out because he really did have an incredible, rich and varied career. So
Can you explain the part to people where they had to like cut some things out?
okay, so essentially what happened is the original script included the 1993 allegation against Michael Jackson. I know that they filmed the first raid on Neverland, and apparently they filmed the strip search, and that was all included in the film. But apparently, when the Michael Jackson settled the civil suit in January 1994, there was a clause inserted that prevented Jackson or any of his representatives from dramatizing the events that led to the settlement. And they discovered this when they were in post production, which you can imagine was a bombshell. So they had to basically delete all that and have another
Let
22
me just
days.
ask a question right there, please. You continue, right? Who
Okay.
put this clause there?
The Larry Feldman and the Chandlers. People don't understand that Michael Jackson was the one being sued. Michael Jackson was not the one who offered the Chandlers money. The Chandlers actually sued Michael Jackson in September 1993, after asking for money from him in August 93, and he refused. The Chandlers originally had a lawyer called Barry Rothman, and there was a to and fro. There's tape recordings of all this stuff, and Michael Jackson refused to pay them any money. They then hired Larry Feldman, who then sued Michael Jackson in September 1993. Michael Jackson still refused to pay any money. And then in January 1994, on the eve of his deposition, because the legal situation was essentially Michael Jackson was being investigated on two fronts. So there was a criminal investigation going on. There was also a civil trial pending. Now, normally the criminal trial will come before a civil trial, but the judge, I think Judge David Rothman, ruled that the civil trial must precede the criminal trial. The problem with that is that leaves Michael Jackson in a position to be deposed and leave his defense to the criminal prosecutors. And if anybody doesn't know this, this is dangerous because in 2005, when they found out he had an alibi, they changed the dates. And so he was left in a position where he literally had to pay up and then wait for the criminal investigation to carry on, and preserve his defense. But the problem was, as soon as the Chandlers got the money, I think they cooperated for another 6 months. Because people don't realize that when the civil suit was settled, this didn't stop the criminal investigation. This went on till September 1994. They just stopped cooperating, only to return, I think, 2 years later to sue him for some more money. But that's another.
And I'll tell you what, right? If the Chandlers, right, if they were so black and white, so to say, picking a song from Michael Jackson, in their accusations, why will they insert a clause that none of the events leading up to that, right, should be dramatized? If everything you were doing was like clean and it was true, why would you have reservations about it being dramatized? I think it was Michael Jackson who should be putting that clause in there saying this should not be dramatized. For me, I think that shows that they don't want to be seen in the way that they conducted this whole thing. What do you think about that?
Well, yes, because there was a conversation, and I think somebody posted this on Twitter. from somebody in the film industry. Basically, they had a conversation with Larry Feldman. I think it was Matthew Bologna, but don't quote me on that. Who had read the script and then said, actually, I think it was Matthew Bologna who said that he was having a conversation with Larry Feldman, who was the attorney that represented the Chandlers in 1993 stroke 94, saying essentially what's in the script and what the Michael Jackson estate and Lionsgate were hoping to put in the film. And apparently Larry Feldman said that's exactly what they're not supposed to do. And then obviously the rest is history. Somebody must have contacted the Michael Jackson estate and said, you can't do that. But more importantly, I think people can believe whatever they like. And I'll just say this. Anybody that investigates these allegations objectively can start by reading an article called Was Michael Jackson Framed by Mary Fisher, which she wrote for GQ in October 1994. Start there, and I promise you, you won't stop there. And I think I don't need to say any more.
Can you also talk about the judge who refused to let the criminal case go ahead first before the civil suit?
I've just mentioned that Judge David M. Rothman, because Michael Jackson's representatives went back to court, I think 4 times, to say, look, we need the civil trial stayed until the criminal investigations are complete, because essentially what he thought was there's not likely to be a trial. But once they do their investigation, they say there's nothing to charge him with. The civil trial will become redundant. And eventually, 2 grand juries refused to indict him anyway. But unfortunately, because Judge Rothman ruled that the civil trial has to come before, he had to settle the civil suit. And then once the Chandlers got money, they cooperated for another couple of months and then stopped altogether. And then later on, the LA County Police Department and the Santa Barbara County Police Department, they had nothing to charge him with. You know,
okay.
I think. Sorry, go on.
Here in England, I saw something on BBC iPlayer a couple of days ago. There's like a documentary there. It says Michael Jackson. What's the title again? Michael Jackson.
An American Tragedy.
Yeah, An American Tragedy. And on that documentary, the guys, the prosecution service, there was a guy and a lady. I don't remember their names. They're retired now. They were the ones who.
Ron Zoden. I didn't watch the documentary, but I know most of the principal figures.
Okay. So this guy says when they were like investigating this case, Chandler stated that Michael Jackson, he described Michael Jackson's private parts. And you would think to yourself that if there was a case and this guy was correct in how he described Michael Jackson's private part, you would think that more than likely, suggests he's guilty. And that will be a strong basis, right, for a case also to come to light. Now, somebody asked this guy on TV in this documentary, they said, what happened when you went over to Michael Jackson's place and the police, they took a picture of his private parts and all that, right?
Yeah.
And he said, Michael said something like, he said, I don't know, and it doesn't matter. He said something not very, very nice to them, as you would expect. So they asked the guy, the description that Chandler gave, was it correct? And the guy said, yes, it was correct. So I thought to myself, if Chandler was correct in describing Michael Jackson's private part, he got it right. How come this case, not only that, how come he wasn't charged right away? And how come that case didn't go to trial? What are you going to say about that?
Well, they would have arrested him immediately on probable cause.
That's what I thought.
Straight away. But secondly, we know that there was no match. He described him as circumcised, and his autopsy proved that he was uncircumcised.
Wow.
But more importantly, during the grand jury proceedings, they actually called Michael Jackson's mother to testify, to ask whether he might have done any surgery to alter his, genitalia so that it doesn't match the descriptions of the boy. I will send you the screenshots from the news reporters. It's see the prosecution line is nothing new.
So sorry. Why will this guy, a whole, big shot for the prosecution service? Why would he go on TV and lie in that manner? Why would he say that what Chana described was correct when in fact it wasn't?
Because they know that for 30 years the media has never challenged their narrative. I mean, let's face it, for 30 years, they've been saying Michael Jackson paid the family off. Most people don't know that Michael Jackson never offered them money. They demanded money from him, and they admitted this in their book that Evan Chandler's brother wrote about the allegations. So people always say, oh, he paid them off. You cannot pay someone not to testify in a criminal investigation. That in itself is a crime. So even if he had settled the civil suit, that does not change. That does not stop
going ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They've been lying for 30 years, and the media has just allowed them to. It's still happening now. The media still allow them to say whatever they want without them being challenged.
What's that YouTube documentary you made me see that totally changed my mind completely about the trial?
Square One.
Square One. Okay. If you are maybe unsure about all these allegations, or you're neutral, or you think Michael is guilty or is not guilty, go and watch Square One on Michael Jackson. It's on YouTube. And I swear, you watch that, now it still gives me that, the shivers when I think of that. If you watch that documentary, you will cry for Michael Jackson, and you will see that this man was 100% innocent. And these are facts. These are not like they're not like maybe your opinions. There were actual factual evidence in this documentary. It was incredible. Take, for example, the guy who accused Michael of doing stuff to him on a train, one of the trains that was like at Neverland, Michael Jackson's home.
That's not in Square One.
Sorry?
That's not in Square One.
It's not. Okay, that's Living Neverland, was that?
Yeah, that's Living Neverland. But carry on. I want to say something, but I'll let you finish.
I was going to say this guy accused Michael of abusing him at Neverland. And it turned out that what he said that happened on the trains that he had in Neverland. Those trains were built 3 years later from the accusations. Huh?
The train station, not the train.
Train station. The train 3 years later, there was another guy who accused him, right? And it turned out that at the point of the time when he said these things were happening, the family was actually were they in Florida on holiday or something?
No, he said that they left him behind when they went to the Grand Canyon, but in his legal depositions, his mother confirmed that they all went to the Grand Canyon. But before we move forward, I want to say that I lost my train of thought now. The train station thing that you mentioned is actually really interesting. It's not in Square One. It is in the later accusation. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. It's very easy to say Michael Jackson fans are defending Michael Jackson because they love his music, which I actually think is insane, because nobody would want to listen to music made by a pedophile. But I have no problem with people saying, we're not sure. What we're saying is people should dig. And it's one of the reasons that when I go on X to argue, I never argue from my perspective. I always post articles written by other journalists, and I always invite people to read the court transcripts from 2005 for a very, very simple reason. It's easy to dismiss what fans are saying. Oh, you like his music, that's why you're defending him. 1993, 94, Mary Fisher wrote an article saying, and her exact words were, the 1993 allegations were a carefully conceived plan to extract money from Jackson. Those were her words, not mine. Dwayne Wickham, who's another journalist, wrote extensively about the 1993 allegations. In 2005, Matt Taibbi basically said the case, Snedden's case against Jackson was BS. His words, not mine. Charles Thompson, another investigator, wrote one of the most shameful episodes in journalistic history, essentially explaining how the media covered the trial. And essentially what they did is they would report all the things that the prosecution side is claiming. And when it came to cross-examination, they were nowhere to be seen. There are
Just
numerous.
like the BB documentary I saw, the same thing happened. There was
Yeah,
nothing about defense; it was all the prosecution.
I will get to that. There are numerous articles by journalists, very few of them, that have written extensively about why these allegations hold no merit. Leaving Neverland, John Ziegler is an American journalist who I've actually spoken to personally. I interviewed him on my channel, who wrote extensively about the problems of the accusers in Leaving Neverland. Charles Thompson also explained the problems with the discovery in the legal proceedings of the Leaving Neverland accusers, which shows how Wade Robson in particular concocted his story by going to anti-Jackson websites and emailing them to himself. You mentioned the train station. I think this is very, very interesting because the train station is a huge problem, and I would really like to explain. SafeChark claimed that between 1988 and 1992, there was stuff going on in the room upstairs in the Neverland train station. And he specifically mentioned that this was at the beginning of what he called the honeymoon period. I mean, the way they describe this is really sick. But we know why they done that. There's history, but we can deal with that some other time. The problem with the train station is once it was discovered that the train station was not in existence between 1988 and 1992, because you have to remember in Leaving Neverland, the narrative was that Jackson liked little boys, and when they get too old, he gets rid of them, right? In 1994, when we now know the train station was completed in May 1994, SafeChark was literally 6'2", a head taller than Michael Jackson. But he was still around Michael Jackson, even though he claimed that a few years before that he wasn't, because he'd got rid of him. Because we see him on the video shoot for the History video. So in 1994, not only was SafeChark 6'2", taller than Jackson, he was no longer a little boy. So when this came out, the director immediately then said, "Oh, okay, the date of the train station is not in doubt. Maybe it's the end of the abuse," which immediately tells you that he's just thrown SafeChark under the bus by saying, "Oh, it's not little boys anymore." He actually said, "Oh, maybe the abuse continues well into when they're adults," which is not what he said in Leaving Neverland. But you see, 1994 is an even bigger problem than they realize. We were talking about the Chandler allegations, right, Harry? Remember?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When did Michael Jackson settle the Chandler civil suit? January 1994. We all remember the kerfuffle, the outrage, right? In 1994, he was being investigated by 2 police departments. And what we're now being asked to believe is that it was during this time that all the stuff with SafeChark was going on. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
He's being investigated by 2 police departments. And the train station has been completed in May 1994. He married Lisa Marie Presley, I think, in May 1994. And he spent most of the time after that in New York anyway. So 1994 is a bust. So the train station...
I don't think they did their homework properly, though.
No. They didn't. They didn't. And the reason they didn't do any homework is because they didn't think they were going to get so much scrutiny. They just thought it was during the Me Too era. And so they just thought, come on, 2 people changed their story and now want money. In a civilized society, the least you can do, let's even say we don't know whether Michael Jackson is guilty or not. Let's just say we don't know, right? When somebody changes their story and says, "Oh, he didn't abuse me. Oh, but now he did. But I now want money," because they are suing for money. You can now go and read the legal papers, right? They were even prepared to give up the civil suit if the Jackson estate were prepared to pay them. The Jackson estate said no, right? They are suing for money. So essentially, when somebody changes their position and is demanding money, in a civilized society, the very least you do is say, "Hold on a second, let's dig into this." There are numerous problems with the claims of the guys in Leaving Neverland. And I think whether you believe Michael Jackson is guilty or not, people should understand what it means that when serious allegations are made, then they must be subjected to serious scrutiny, especially when the accusers are asking for money.
I remember you saying that FBI investigated Michael for 10 years, but I checked on Google, it was actually 14 years.
Well, actually, I didn't say they investigated him for 10 years because the FBI never investigated Michael Jackson continuously. People, there's conflicting stories about this, but I'll just go with what has come from my research. They assisted the investigation by the states in 1993, and they also assisted again in 2003. I think mostly with forensic stuff. So I don't think that Michael Jackson was under surveillance for 10 years. That's not what I.
But the case was open at their place, wasn't it? If it's open, then it's ongoing.
The files are there. You can go and read it. You can go and read it. They found nothing. You know, they raided Neverland numerous times. They found nothing. But again, like I said, it really doesn't matter whether people believe he's guilty or not, but people should really dig, because we really live in dangerous times when two people can come forward and say, we lied before.
Okay, let me just cut you there, right? In this movie, right, the critics, you know, they went to town because they were like saying, oh, this is just like a gratification movie, you know, self-gratification. Why wasn't the allegations mentioned when it was obviously said that this movie will cover 68 to 1988, and by 88, was it 88 or 87?
88. Well, the beginning of the bad tour, yeah.
Yeah, 88, and by 88 there was like no accusations to Michael, so you couldn't have covered it then. You know, that's the first thing. Second thing, right? We both know that even if they had included, you know, the allegations, the critics, they only want to see one thing happen. They don't want to address the fact that this guy has been to trial and has been found not guilty, and all those things that, like, you know, that stands in his favor. They would have said, oh yeah, what would you expect? Now let's put that aside. What I say is this, right? In the next episode, so no, in the next the sequel to the movie, right?
In the sequel, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like there is going to be a part where they address those allegations.
They have to.
I think. Sorry.
They have to.
They have to. Yeah.
Oh my God, they have to.
Yeah, I think this is a part and a big chance for the Jacksons, the Jackson 5. Sorry, the Michael Jackson estate, to all those things that the press, you know, that they cover up, all those things that haven't got, like, you know, the light of day because they suppressed them, you know. I think this will be the time for them to bring out all this evidence on a movie that will be seen by millions. And it could help, you know, state Michael Jackson's case. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, it's interesting you say that. And I suspect that that's probably why you're getting a lot of panic from the press at the moment. Variety alone has posted, I think it's 16 anti-Jackson articles since the movie came out.
Wow.
Yeah, 16. This morning, I think this morning or yesterday morning, they posted another one trying to tie.
In less than 1 month, that is, yeah.
Yeah, in trying to tie him to Jeffrey Epstein. Rolling Stone has been doing it, because basically what's happening with journalism these days is that somebody will post something and everybody else will just copy and paste it. The Leaving Neverland director has been going on a splurge of anti-Jackson interviews because obviously he's pissed that his movie didn't cancel. Yeah. He's pissed at the scrutiny, and now I don't understand why anybody who's making serious claims like that will be annoyed that he's being scrutinized. If anything, if you're telling the truth, you should welcome scrutiny, saying, here, have a go, you know, knock yourselves out. You know, the Michael Jackson estate asked for his outtakes. He refused. The media congratulated him. They congratulated him. They said, oh, but he managed to fight them off, as if this is a good thing. If you're making serious allegations against somebody who's dead, who cannot defend himself, and you're saying, oh, they are asking for his outtakes, but he managed to fight them off. I'm thinking, are we crazy here? At the very least, if he knows that everything he's saying is the truth, he should happily hand over his outtakes and say, knock yourselves out, Michael Jackson.
Exactly.
But he's fighting them off. We hear him on video correcting Wade Robson when Wade Robson said, my best friend, and he corrected him saying, and lover. And Wade Robson corrected himself. So we know these guys were being coached, right? We know that when stuff was being discovered that wasn't truthful in the documentary, they were editing stuff from Sundance for when it came out in HBO. They were cutting stuff out, you know? So it's the whole thing is insane. And like you said, if the Michael Jackson estate are able to take something like the article written by the British investigative reporter Charles Thompson that said one of the most shameful episodes in journalistic history as an example, for example, and cover how the media, well, let me say the most of the media have deliberately, it's been deliberate, reported unfairly about the allegations. That's a step in the right direction, and this is something that I will sign up with. And
just a quick second there. Why do you think this? Why do you think the media are not on the side of the truth? Why do you think they are? Because they could go two ways. The media could go, oh, all this time we thought Michael was this monster, but this guy was innocent. Here's the truth. They can go that way, or they could go the other way of trying to suppress the truth. Why are they hell-bent on staying, on the wrong side of the law, so to say? Why can't they just say the truth? Do you think the Beatles thing, the catalog, Sony, or racism, as his father stated, do you think any of these issues are involved, or why do you think?
Let me be honest. I don't know anything for certain. However, I have certain suspicions, and my suspicions are that gossip and controversy sells. The media are about money. He's innocent doesn't have mileage. He's guilty does. That's why they've been regurgitating the same thing for 30 years. Oh, he's innocent. The story's dead. Once you say he's innocent, well, what do you say after that? There's not much you cannot keep nobody if they say, oh, he's innocent, you're not going to find 30, 40 different media platforms copying and pasting and saying, he's innocent, nah, there's no news in that. And because they assume our audience are not really interested, they want to read smutty stuff. Oh, he did this, he did that. Oh, they discovered child porn. No, they didn't. But we print it anyway. They printed a lot of stuff that wasn't true. Michael Jackson paid off 200 different kids. It's not true, but they printed it anyway because they know people are going to click, people are going to read, oh, Jesus Jews. This was all debunked in the trial in 2005. But they still print that now. People are still talking about that now, but these were all debunked during the trial. But who cares? The media are not about the truth. That journalism died a long time ago. John Ziegler, who I have a lot of respect for, wrote extensively about the problems with journalism these days and how they are more interested in clicks and profits and not the truth. A reporter that I spoke to said that he wrote an article about Michael Jackson many years ago, and when they printed what he thought was going to be his article, he couldn't recognize it. He couldn't recognize what they printed. One of the papers in London. He couldn't he couldn't believe it. This is nothing to do. Then he won an award. Get this. He won an award for exposing a pedophile ring in Essex. This is what he does, right? He was then offered a job, apparently, by a major news outlet in England. And he asked them, am I going to do investigative work? Or am I just going to be doing copy and pasting? They were like, no, mate, you're just going to be doing copy and pasting. He was like, no, man, you keep your.
Yeah, what's the point of that?
You keep your job. No, because the internet has killed part of their market, I think, and so they're trying to survive.
I mean, when I see things on the net nowadays, I don't know what to believe. You have to go and check it and cross-check and check over and over again. You don't know. People just
I don't buy the papers anymore. And I want to finish answering your question because I haven't quite finished yet. Is race part of it? There are people who are convinced that race might be a part of it. I suspect that there might be. But I think profit is probably the most fundamental reason why the media continue to propagate this absolute nonsense. And I also think that they are not going to turn around and say, we were wrong after all these years.
Okay, let me say one thing quickly, please. Sorry to cut you in there.
That's okay.
The movie, right, when the sequel comes, right, how do you think the Michael Jackson estate should address this allegations. Do you think, as I think, that they should try and pile on as much evidence as possible, on screen, or how do you think they should go about?
Okay, so I'll say something that I say to a friend of mine who hates it when I say it, but I meant it and I still mean it. I said to her that I don't care about the music. I don't care about Billie Jean or Beat It or the Moonwalk or any of that. Yeah, I watched the film and I enjoyed it, but ultimately I care more for the human being that was Michael Jackson. And my what I wanted from this first film is I wanted people to leave the cinema in tears. That's what I actually was hoping for. But obviously, I
Remember, I
know
told
that.
you how emotional I got, and I was saying to myself, Harry, stop that nonsense.
Yeah, well, you're not my best friend, who's not what I would consider an emotional person, said he felt emotional, and I felt a little, but it was just a little because I know a lot more about what went on, and for me, it was always about I was more interested in them telling the story, and if people leave that theater weeping at the sheer travesty and injustice of it, that would be that will work. So that's what I wanted. So in answer to your question, it if the second film, yeah, they're gonna do Dangerous and they're gonna show the great music and the great dancing and the concerts, and it's gonna sound great. But Harry, do you know what? For me, I want them to highlight all the things that I've discovered in my 6, 7 years of research, and I continue to learn new things every day. I want them to show all the exculpatory evidence that shows that, as Mary Fisher said, it was a carefully conceived plan to extract money from him. All the allegations are based on people trying to score money from Michael Jackson. In fact, I don't even care if there's no music in it, and I know that it won't sell. I would go and watch it if I knew they were just going to highlight all the things that we know, all the stuff that was written by all these journalists who were saying, hold on a second, there's another side to this story. Oh, great, Billie Jean. Nah, mate, for me. But I know that's probably not what's going to happen. They're probably going to find middle ground, I think, because they want to make it entertaining. They want to make it a family film, and they want to make money. This is what these people do. But for me, it's no longer about Michael Jackson's musical legacy. It is about his human legacy. That I've seen Billie Jean. I've seen. Haven't you? Yeah, Jafar was fantastic. Don't get me wrong, and I enjoyed the music, especially at the end. Bad sounded bad, right? But I want to see the redemption of the man. And before you ask me another question, Barry Rothman, who was Evan Chandler's first lawyer, had a secretary working in his office. It turned out that there's a very good chance that the source for Mary Fisher's investigative article was Geraldine Hughes, who was Barry Rothman's secretary. She actually wrote a book called Redemption about this very thing where she laid out the entire scheme of how they forced Michael Jackson into settling that case. She tried to get herself interviewed on American TV. What do you think happened? Nobody wanted it. There was one interview I think she done. She said one of the best interviews she did. She did a few. They never aired it. So Harry, I mean, I don't know, man.
That's crazy. Okay,
Yeah.
let's leave that for a second now. Let's
Mhm.
talk about Joe Jackson in the movie.
Ah,
For me, what I'll say is this: if that portrayal of Joe Jackson was real, then I think he's a piece of work, not a good one. Um, Honestly, I know about Joe Jackson and I know about how he brought his kids up with a stern, outlook and all that, trying to put the boys on the straight and narrow, which I understand. But I think there's a fine line, and I think it crossed that line a few times. What do you think?
yes. But at the same time, and you and I have had this conversation privately, he was a man. Joe Jackson was not unique for his time. Um, the cruelty was unnecessary. The both psychological and physical were completely unnecessary. And I'm not trying to excuse what he did. Some people make the argument that he felt that he needed to be tough on his kids in order to bring them up in the world that they were in. Well, you know what? I know how I felt about that kind of treatment, and so I would never treat my child in that way. So was he a piece of work? Yeah. Does that mean that I thought that the movie could have depicted him with a few more layers, because I suspect that that's not all he's all about.
Mm.
Um, and the thing is, I like to kind of take a step back and not judge too hard because I don't know the man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I,
and
just hold on a second there, please. I see what you mean, but when I see a scene like Michael getting burnt and everyone was like running helter skelter, making sure he hasn't lost his life or he hasn't had like an injury that might even like I don't know, be
yeah,
like a
yeah, yeah,
permanent, you
yeah,
know.
exactly.
And then the first thing that the dad says is, "Will they be able to do the tour?" I'm like, uh, who does that?
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
I thought that was. I'm like, is that real? But the fact that his kids were on that movie as executive producers, it tells
yeah,
me it happened
yeah, it
because they would have
happened.
said, "No, you can't put that in. That didn't happen."
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
yeah,
happened.
of course, and obviously his wife has seen that, so they've signed up off on it. So yeah,
And
it,
you know what
it,
I think again, right? I think because they were on that board, they probably allowed things to be used about their father that they thought that's not too bad. That should be okay. So there's more things that are worse than that. Honestly, that's what I think.
yeah, well, probably, but you see, ultimately, Michael made his peace with his dad before he died. So yes.
Yes, so we're told that he didn't say that himself publicly, so I don't know about that.
No, he did. He did. He made a quite an extensive speech at, I think, Oxford University, where he spoke about this.
What did he say?
Um, well, basically, just saying that he had issues with his dad, but he loves him, and they've moved past it. I cannot quote,
That's not making peace with his dad. That's just like
Mike,
PR. That's not making peace.
Harry, he did not have to make that speech. I cannot quote exactly what he said, but trust me, I'll find it and I'll send it to you. Michael made peace with his dad before he died. And so, as far as I'm concerned, it's, yeah,
Well, well, even if he made peace with his dad, it doesn't mean that things that happened didn't happen.
Oh, I'm not saying,
And
yeah, but Harry, I'm not saying he didn't.
One second. Even kids who were like abused by their parents, like sexually, right? Some of them make peace. You don't then say,
I know.
yeah.
I'm not saying any of the claims. That's not what I'm saying. I didn't say any of the claims didn't happen. I'm just saying.
No, what I'm saying is, I think the part where you said Mike had made peace with his dad, I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that changes anything for me. I'm talking about the person that Joe Jackson was. I don't care if Michael forgives him or not.
I'm not. See, I'm not saying it does. This is the point I'm trying to make. Michael made peace with his dad. Therefore, me as an outsider looking in, I get what happened. I understand the impact that it had on his life. I just watch it as a film, and I think, okay, you know what? I'm not making. For me, I'm not making a big deal out of it. That's all I'm saying, because the person that it affected directly is not. He didn't at the end of his life. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm not lessening the impact of what happened.
Well, what you might say at the end of his life, but what his father did to him, right, had a big effect. The guy was having surgery. Hold on.
I'm not saying he didn't. I'm not saying he didn't.
Hold on. The guy was having surgery, right, he must have had about like 10 nose jobs. I don't know. That was all his father.
Yeah, I know. And
so,
again,
so you cannot say to me personally, that's how I feel, that, because Michael was okay, then I don't know. Michael can feel what he feels, and I can feel what I feel.
Exactly. Thank you. You just hit the nail on the head. You can feel what you feel. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what you feel. I'm just telling you what I feel.
Okay.
And that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying, look, at the end of the day, I get where you're coming from, and I understand that the person which suffered from this mostly made peace with his father before he died. And me as an outsider looking in, yeah, I saw the film, and having got my own experiences, I get it, but I'm kind of just, I'm ambivalent, if that's a word I can use about it all. I'm just, do you see what I mean?
Okay, let's leave that aside now.
Okay.
What part in the movie was your favorite part? Your favorite scene in the movie?
Bad. The
That's what my
end.
daughter. That's what music said as well. You know, she said bad was her favorite part of the movie. Yeah.
I watched it in IMAX, right? And when you see the intro with the orchestral stabs,
Yeah.
ba 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 ba, and when that bass hit, man, I'm not even going to use the word on television. I was in
I hope
seventh
you went
heaven.
dancing because I know you're a terrible dancer, the worst I've ever seen in my life.
Do you know what? 1,000 rhinos. That's all I'm saying. 1,000 rhinos trample on your forehead. Nah, mate. I was tapping my 4 hours. It sounded absolutely awesome. And I understand why people say you should watch it in IMAX for the visuals and the sound. And Jafar's performance in that one was the best. He captured, my God. I was like, okay, yeah, man. That was my favorite bit. In fact, that end is the reason I'll go and see it again.
You gonna see it again?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go watch it again.
I think my favorite part would probably be uh I don't know. There were like a scene or two with his mother, you know,
hmm,
and also the part where he was saying to his father, the part where they were like in his bedroom and his
mhm.
father was waiting for him in the bedroom, and he gets in
Yeah,
and he goes, "What do
yeah.
you
You
want
want
now,
some?
Joseph?"
You want something, Joseph? Yeah.
And the way Michael was holding on to that door, you could
Mm,
tell that he was just
yeah.
like,
It's time you gotta leave, Negro. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. And then the
Yeah.
part where he announces on stage that this will be our last show, and he sees
Yeah.
his dad, in the corridor, and he had the smirk on his face that got you.
Mm. Yeah,
you
because
know,
the actual clip from the victory tour where he actually did that has been doing the rounds online before I even saw the film. I didn't know whether people who've seen it already knew that it was in the film. He was asserting his independence, and I think it's interesting that they ended the film right there when he finally broke free from his father's shackles, which obviously should make the next film interesting.
interesting. Yeah,
But I really hope that they cover these these allegations and they cover it fairly because people are so misinformed, deliberately so. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there are people who will never accept that he was innocent, no matter what you tell them,
yeah.
because they dismiss. I know people who they dismiss the acquittal. They don't realize that Michael Jackson actually faced 5 different allegations in 2005. They don't know because they never read the court records. They don't
Mm.
realize that the prosecution, Snedden, actually brought in previous allegations. So
And
imagine,
he was acquitted on 10 charges. 10
yeah,
charges. You
yeah,
don't
but
get that
Harry,
if you're guilty.
imagine how messed up this is, right? You're in court charged with a crime. The prosecution are then allowed to bring in not previous convictions, where they have already established that you committed the crime, but to bring in previous untested allegations. It's insane. What the American judicial system allowed to happen is insane. But apparently, it's a penal code in California called 1108, where they're allowed to bring in. So if somebody accuses me of, I don't know, robbing their house, and 2 people have accused me 10 years ago, but they never proved it, they're allowed to bring it in. And the jury heard all of that and still, acquitted him. And when you read the trial transcripts, you will understand why.
Okay.
Snedden's been gunning for him for 10 years. He was traveling all over the world trying to find witnesses, going to Australia and the Philippines and all sorts, man. They had a hotline going for years, waiting for
Imagine
people to.
you do all
Yeah,
that and they still
yeah,
cannot come out with
yeah,
anything to pin the guy
yeah,
down, and some people still
yeah.
think he's guilty. That's incredible. And
Have you
I
heard?
think we were like discussing this when you were talking to a friend of yours, who thought he was guilty. And when you
Hmm.
gave her all this facts, she said, "Oh well, but he's a weirdo."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've had that. I've had people say, "Why did he pay?" And then when I explained the legal complications of why he had to settle the civil suit, she then went, "Oh, I didn't realize it was that complicated. I can't handle that right now because I've had wine. And I'm like, but you had wine when you asked me the question. Oh, and then she says, oh, you're quite passionate about this, aren't you? I went, well, yes, because I detest injustice. I've had loads of people give me spurious reasons why they just don't want to accept it. He's a weirdo. Well, yeah, but how does that translate to he's a pedophile? How does that translate? And I said to her, you asked me, why did he pay? I explained to you the legal complications that forced him to settle the civil suit in January 1994, or the day before he was due to be deposed, right? And then she says, oh, I didn't realize it was that complicated. I've had wine. I can't wrap my head around that. I'm like, you had wine when you asked me the question. Why is it all of a sudden when I've told you exactly what happened, you don't want to, you don't want to take it in? Then she goes, you're quite passionate about this, aren't you? I went, well, yeah, I detest injustice. So why wouldn't I be passionate about it? These allegations killed him ultimately. So
Yeah.
yeah, and because I've done my homework, then she said, oh, you can never trust a court of law. I said, so what does that mean? Everybody that was ever acquitted is also guilty, or does this only apply to Michael Jackson? Right? Or they bring up OJ as an example, which just shows how insanely stupid some people can be. The cases are completely different, right? And when you read the transcripts, you will see why the man was acquitted. The timeline alone doesn't even make sense. But anyway, I don't want to, comment.
So now, to round things up, a score of 10, how much would you give the movie? And also, while doing that, tell the viewers why you think they should see the movie as well.
I will give it 6.5.
Oh, I'm giving it 7.5.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll give it 6.5 because I think that it could have been so much better. I would say if you are, and the reason why people should go and see it, if you are a Michael Jackson fan, and even if you're not a Michael Jackson fan, but you like musical biopics and you like this fantastic visual imagery that this film was able to bring on screen, and the music, you'll enjoy it. I mean, this is the only movie I've ever seen where people are dancing in the theater and you're seeing people doing all kinds of moves, and at the end of it, they don't want to leave and they're singing and dancing. I think the energy is incredible. My experience in the theater was very quiet because it was in Leicester Square, so I suppose people don't boogie in Leicester Square, man. They were all just sitting there. They were all just sitting there like zombies, man. I want to go and see it where there's loads of black people, even though, to be honest, the audience that had been dancing and boogieing were mixed.
Sorry, Michael has more white fans than black people. So
absolutely, and yeah, I should take that back because it was loads of people that were dancing. They were dancing in Berlin. They were in France. Oh my God! I mean, people were just going crazy. All over the world, people are dancing in the theater. They're nuns singing, and yeah, it's been fantastic. It's what the man deserves. But I think more than that, the man deserves for these allegations to be looked at objectively, devoid of all the noise by the mainstream, by most of the media. There are journalists who have done a bloody good job, and the court records are accessible online. Honestly, people should go and read. That's all. That's all.
Okay. Thanks, Tavian, for coming along. This is
Thank you, friend. So you won't be my friend when this is over, yeah? I mean, we'll go back to
in 10 seconds. We're back to default
settings. So what is it? Frenemies, because that's a term.
Frenemies, like Tupac will say.
yeah. So yeah, I suppose Now, honestly, it's been fun. I like to talk about this stuff. I'm very because I spend a lot of time on it. So and I'm still learning new things every day. Oh, and another thing, I have to put this in there. If anyone wants to read what is, to all intents and purposes, the most most well-researched and in-depth series of articles on the allegations, it is written by an American journalist called Jael Rucker. She runs Decked Out magazine.
Rucker, how do you call Rucker? Is that R-U-C-K-E-R?
Yes. And she's written, How Come No One Ever Apologizes to Michael Jackson? She's been writing this for I think 3 years. It is just absolutely amazing. She's turning it into a book this year. If anyone wants to understand what really happened, this is as well as reading the court transcript from 2005. This is the best place because she covers. She's unbelievable, and so I really would like to give a shout out to her because she's doing an amazing job.
I think you should write a book as well, actually, Tavian.
What about dinosaurs or about?
No, not dinosaurs. About Michael. This case in particular.
Maybe, I don't know. It's just, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's something that I take seriously, but I don't think it burns enough for me. I don't know how to put this.
You don't think it burns? You've been on this thing for 7 years, man. You've read every court transcript.
Maybe I'm just lazy. It burns because I think that after my research, I realized that he wasn't just a great musician. He was also an amazing human being who had the kind of empathy that I wish I had.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Let me stop you there. Talking about one of my favorite scenes, that should also rank very, very highly. This man was burnt. He was in the hospital. He didn't know, what was going to happen with his career, how bad the injury was. Yet he took the time in that hospital, right, to go and visit other kids who were like burned, and he was spending time with them. He didn't think about himself. I thought that was incredible.
Michael did. I actually didn't know a lot about his charity work until I started doing my research. That he supported more charities than any celebrity alive. He donated 300 to 400 million in his lifetime. He supported more Black charities than most celebrities. His scholarship is still educating Black kids as we speak. And that says nothing about whether he's guilty or not.
Oh, no.
I'm just,
the person.
Yeah, it's just he was I think he was a hyper empath, if there's such a thing. I'm sure you know about his relationship with Ryan White, the boy who died of HIV.
Oh yeah, in the 80s. Was that 80s? Oh,
yeah. Michael spent a lot of time with him. Michael spent a lot of time with Dave Rothenberg, the burn victim, who Michael, when he found out what happened.
Even the boy who accused him during the Martin Bashir case, wasn't that a guy who was supposed to have cancer and who's coming to his house?
Yeah. Well, that's the strange thing about that case in particular, because they met in 2000. Michael looked after him for, I think, about 2 years, and then they were not in contact after those 2 years. And it was only when Martin Bashir came around and said, I want to meet some of these kids that you help. And ironically, there were 2 kids that Michael proposed. There was Gavin Arvizo and David Rothenberg, who was the burn victim. Apparently, Bashir obviously chose Gavin Arvizo because he knew what he was going to do. He could easily sell the idea that, this is a bit dodgy, because nobody's going to believe that Michael might lightly abuse David Rothenberg.
And condition and all that,
yeah. And so obviously what they're saying is Michael met this kid, spent like a year and a half with him. Then they didn't see each other for a long while. Then they brought him back for this documentary. They filmed this documentary. Then there was a whole hoopla about the documentary, putting his head on his shoulder, which was Bashir's idea, hold hands, which was Bashir's idea.
Was that Bashir's idea?
Yes.
How do you know that?
Because it's been claimed in the film What You're Not Meant to See. And there's actually a video that I'll also send you a copy of, where I don't know who he is. He's one of the major figures in British television saying they didn't like what Bashir did to Michael Jackson. He doesn't specify exactly. I'm trying to think where I got it from somewhere. I'll dig it out.
Hold on, because I cannot go past this. And just in case you're wondering, guys, the guy, Martin Bashir, who interviewed Michael when there was all this controversy about him sharing his bed with boys and all that, right? And in that video, we see a boy who was like resting his head on Michael's shoulder, looking like a lost puppy and holding hands. You are now saying to me that this was Bashir's idea that the boy should do that, like he was directing that scene.
Yeah, they were directing the scene. I'm trying to remember exactly where I got that from, because I don't want to say something which I cannot back up with facts. Wow. So I think maybe leave that, because I cannot remember directly but I know I heard it. But more importantly, we know for a fact that Bashir lied about a lot of things to get that video done. What he said to Michael Jackson, because Michael Jackson had his own camera rolling. I think you know that.
I didn't know that.
So, oh, you didn't know that? Oh my
No,
God! So have you not seen Living with Michael Jackson, the clip, the clips you're not meant to see, or something like that?
no, I haven't seen that either.
I'll send it to you. He had his own camera rolling. So Bashir's praising him in his own, because obviously he did the voiceover to the film later on. So he's praising Michael Jackson, saying it's just spiritual what he's doing, how amazing it is what he's doing for all these kids. But then when he went back to London to do his voiceover, he changed the narrative completely.
Mm.
He was supposed to give Michael editorial
Control.
control, yes. He forged Michael Jackson's signature.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then, I don't know if you also know this, Bashir was the first witness on the stand in 2005, right? What do you think he did? He refused to answer any questions and hid behind the California Shield Law. He wouldn't answer any question. He's a dog. He's a dog.
So
And
like I always say, if he was telling the truth, right, and had nothing to hide, why would you not answer questions?
because they know they don't want to incriminate themselves.
I know that's what I'm saying. I know. It's obvious.
Do you know that in 2005, Jordan Chandler was asked to testify? He refused. Did you know that? People think Michael Jackson paid them off so they won't testify. He refused
I know he
to
left the country or something.
Yeah. I heard that, but again, I cannot verify that. But I know he refused to testify because we have documents to prove it. His mother testified. His uncle, who wrote a book about the allegations, also refused to testify and hid behind the California Shield Law. I mean, look, again, people need to just dig, you know. Call me crazy. I don't care because they have a term, Michael Jackson truthers. It's a load of nonsense. People just need to go and have a look and they'll see for themselves because it's all out there. You know, it's all out there. It's easily found. June Chandler or June Schwartz, well, she wasn't even June Schwartz at the time. She testified in 2005. People don't understand that in 2005, like I said before, he was facing 5 allegations. They said there was third parties claiming that he abused Wade Robson, Macaulay Culkin, and Brett Barnes. But guess what? The prosecution didn't ask the people who were supposed to have been abused if they were abused. They didn't ask the people who were supposed to have been abused, but they brought in other people to say they saw them being abused. Do you know what? It's in America, man. Seriously.
I really, really hope that, the sequel that Michael Jackson's estate can, bring all this to light. I think it'll be crazy if they don't take this, opportunity. I really think so.
I'm glad we didn't finish this because I want to add one more thing. Aphrodite Jones was reporting for Fox News during the trial. She was known as a Michael Jackson critic. She sat through that trial, and at the end of it, she saw how quick the media were dejected that he was acquitted. Because you know how much money they were going to make if he was convicted. The story would have gone on for years. If he was still alive, there would have still been stories now. He was the biggest celebrity on the planet. Aphrodite Jones then said, hold on a second. These people have just moved on to the next thing, just like that. This was a man's life. So she said, I'm going to write a book about this trial and why this man was acquitted, right? She then approached several publishing houses in America, bearing in mind that she's already had several New York Times best-selling books.
Oh, I remember her now, yeah.
Right, you remember her. If they would publish the book. They all turned her down and said, what, a pro Michael Jackson back? No, we don't want that. I have a video of her saying it. So when people say, oh, conspiracy theory, there is a conspiracy theory to not publish anything that shows Michael Jackson in a good light. If they were so sure that the man was guilty, why would they not make a film and let someone write a book about it? But because she said she was going to write a book about why he's innocent, they don't want it. They don't want it. And this is all facts. So people can believe what they like, but the people who are genuinely curious, and what's happening is the youngsters are digging, bro. The youngsters are digging. The youngsters are doing their homework. There's a guy on TikTok called MJ Historian doing amazing work. He gets some of his facts wrong, but that's fine. None of us are perfect. But
Mm.
they're doing their homework because they can go on the internet and read court records and read articles by journalists who actually do their job, and they're realizing, hold on a second, what these people are saying doesn't make any sense, you know. So yeah, but the next movie, um, if they don't address the allegations, I don't think I will even go and watch it because I'll be so pissed off. No, no, seriously, I understand why
Maybe
they.
maybe some of them will get to see this video. Hopefully, maybe somebody will send somebody something to somebody, and they know we cannot mess this up on the next movie.
Well, look, I don't think personally. The problem is these things are in the hands of people who are only interested in money, and if they think they can make money without addressing it, will they do it? But I actually think they'll make more money if they address it and they address it honestly, because
Yeah, I think so too.
I think people will be so devastated and shocked at what is actually out there and how they've been lied to for 30 years that it would gain, Michael Jackson will gain even more fans
Yeah,
because people
I
will be
believe
so,
so too. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the critics that are crying that they didn't address the allegations, even though they knew that they did address the allegations and they had to remove them for legal reasons. I mean, the dishonesty and duplicity is actually nauseating. I knew this, and I'm not even a critic. I work in a flipping lab, for Pete's sake, you know, and I knew this. It was common knowledge. And now they say, oh, why didn't they put the allegation? Why did they stop at 1980? It's a whitewash. It's a sun. Oh, give me a break. You know, they've been lying for 30 years. And I hope the Michael Jackson estate and Lionsgate stick, give him a finger and come out with part two and show all the stuff that we know is out there that shows that the media cannot be trusted. I hate Trump with every fiber of my being, but the one thing that he says that I agree with, as much as I hate it, is fake news. Yeah, because they are not to be trusted. They are not to be trusted because they only care about profit and nothing else. So yeah, I really hope that the part two they deal with it, and maybe it's more drama than musical, and then maybe they can do a part three and go back to musical again. Who knows?
I think they can have both in part two. They can have drama and music. You know, they can do that. A 2 hour film or 2.5 hour movie, that'll be okay.
Well, it's interesting, Harry, because I know we try to end this, but there's just always so much more to talk about. Have you ever listened to history and listened to some of the lyrics that Michael Jackson was singing?
Yeah, it was a very, very I found it to be a very, very angry album. He was angry. He was yeah.
Have you listened to DS?
I don't remember DS.
Oh my God, you need to go back and listen to DS. DS is called Dom Sheldon. Do you know the name of the prosecutor?
He called out his name, didn't he? Yeah, I remember that one.
Tom Sneddon. Michael was basically saying, screw you, I'm innocent. I'm going to make a song and cuss your racist ass. And the man had balls, I'll tell you that. He was angry. Scream. What was the opening lyrics? I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this stuff. I'm tired of injustice. Something. Oh, it's gone out of my head now.
It was a very angry album. Then they don't really care about us.
Tabloid junkie. Just because you read it in a magazine and see it on a movie screen doesn't mean it's factual. I mean, I never realized that there was so much biographical content in history until I went back
It was a very angry. It was defensive for a reason, and it was very angry. That album.
Yeah. He was pissed. He was pissed off. You know, he was pissed off.
Actually, Rod, when I watched the documentary, the first one, the one that I spoke about, Square One. Mm-hmm. I swear, I thought to myself, Michael must be the strongest man alive, because I would have topped myself off when the things that he went through, because I'm thinking to myself, all those accusations when you were only helping people and everyone in the world was pointing at you, that must have been, oh my God. I heard there were days that he couldn't leave his room. And I know he was crying all those days, man.
Yeah, Paris Jackson actually spoke about this, how it felt to have her father crying in her arms. Bill Whitfield, one of the bodyguards who wrote a book when Michael Jackson died, Remember the Time, I think the book was called, spoke about this, that sometimes they'll be out and somebody will say something and Michael will go back and lock himself in his room for days. It's the worst thing that you can accuse someone of, which is why it's important. I don't even have problems with people who think he's guilty, but because it's the worst thing that you can accuse someone of, I think it's also equally important that people actually go and have a good look, have a good look and see, is there more to this than why was he acquitted? And don't believe what you read in the media. Go and look at primary legal sources because it's all there. It's the
Yeah.
way. I don't even know how he did it because I honestly, like you said, I would have topped myself.
I couldn't handle that, man.
Yeah,
It was too much for me, man. It was too much. It's so
yeah.
sad, man. Really broke my heart.
And it wasn't
Anyway,
once; it
we're
was
gonna keep on
twice.
going. We're gonna keep on going on. We have to end at a point, sadly.
Yeah, yeah.
So, guys, I hope
We could do a
you.
sequel.
Yeah, we could, man. Watch out, guys.
Mm.
And Tavian will be dancing in the sequel as well. He will make your day. I promise.
No, 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 no. I'll do the moon stagger instead of the moonwalk.
I'm gonna stagger lead. Okay, guys. I really hope you had I don't know. I was gonna say maybe some of you who were like at a point unsure. Maybe you're a bit more informed now. Like Tavian said, some of you will still think it's guilty. Some will think it's not guilty. We're all entitled to our opinions. But I think if we're gonna be like deal with facts only, and we are gonna be neutral, I think you will see there's more chance that it's innocent than guilty with all this like facts and all this proof we're talking about here. But it doesn't matter anyway. If you haven't seen the movie, go see it. I think you're gonna love it. And we're gonna meet again when the sequel comes out. So it's Harry and Tavian signing out. I'll see you later. Take care. Bye.
I was gonna say something before we read, but never mind.
Go on, say it. Go on.
I was just gonna say, remember, serious allegations deserve serious scrutiny, and that's all.
Okay, guys. See you later, and that's final.
Bye.
Let's react.